G'day guys, welcome back to another tipping video on the channel. Today I'll be going through my prelim final predictions. Now obviously I didn't get my predictions out last week as I was in Italy. I did get them out, but I didn't get a whole video and I didn't get to go through the first week of the finals and really go into my second week in detail, which was a bit unfortunate, but we'd be back to normal for my prelim finals this week. But first, let's go through what an exciting round it was in week two. Fantastic semi-finals. Start off with the first, and with in between Carlton and Melbourne. Was a fantastic game, a superb one to watch, and it was Carlton who got the job done thanks to their Blake Acres clutch goal in the last minute of the game to secure a win. A win that Melbourne definitely choked. They choked badly. Just some poor decisions late in the game, some inaccuracy that's just ruined their whole final series and their whole season, and just some decisions, some selection calls. Yeah, wow, it was a shocking game for Melbourne. One that they were in control of for majority of that second half. And they started out of the blocks as well. They were absolutely superb. Looked like they had tweaked their game plan up a bit. They looked like they were playing a little bit more daring footy, which is what Melbourne need to be doing. And if they played like that, like they did in the first 10 minutes, they would have won the game. They kicked 3 goals in the first, 20 minutes of the game, and looked like they were going to run away with it. But credit to the Blues for getting the job done and booking a prelim final berth against the Lions, and that's 2 years in a row now for Melbourne, going out in straight sets. Absolutely disastrous way to end their season. What was Max Gawn doing on the goal line? Just touched it and punched it into the post. What was he doing? Absolutely cost them the game. It wasn't just him though. He missed one earlier. Fritsch was inaccurate, not just in this game, but in the game earlier against Collingwood as well. Just some bad misses. Cozzy Pickett had an interesting first half. He was pretty good in the second half though, apart from that final shot he had, which would have definitely won Melbourne the game. If any of these went through, just inaccuracy absolutely cost them. But yeah, credit to the Blues. Fantastic performance. Blake Acres, probably been the player of the final series. He's definitely competing with Sam Walsh for it at the moment. Those two have been superb and were yet again superb. Just some decisions from the Blues, though, and some daring footy late. Definitely got the job done. Tom De Koning was superb in the first half, kept his side really in it when they were out of it in the first quarter. Kicked the first 2 goals of the game for Carlton and was really, really good. He played a similar game to what Curnow did last week in the first half and was really, really impressive and crucial to the Blues win. Obviously, didn't go the way they would have wanted with Sam Doherty getting injured, but he came out and had a fantastic second half, just the ferocity, and in the end he was involved in the famous play they call now in Wiedering to Hollands to Doherty to Acres, which, well, was absolutely fantastic and was absolutely superb. And unlike Melbourne, who didn't use their sub and Josh Shackey, Ollie Hollands came on and had a fantastic game as sub. At least final fourth quarter, and was involved in the match-winning play. So that's something for Melbourne to think about as well during the off-season. But yeah, the Blues were absolutely superb. Midfield probably won the game in the end in the second half as well. Daring plays and really good ball movement, especially in the final 5 minutes. They looked really switched on. Melbourne did as well, but they were just inaccurate. Their pressure's been really good this final series as well, Carlton. It was really impressive in the last quarter as well against Melbourne. And yeah, they were absolutely superb. So Acres played injured in both finals, and Doherty played the second half of that game injured as well. So it'll be interesting to see how those two go, as they were probably best of field in the second half and were involved in the match-winning play that won them the game. Very, very interesting how the 2 most injured players on the field were involved in the match-winning play. Again, Melbourne's defence didn't look so good, which meant that forward line, it was horrible again. They've got a lot of work to do during the off-season, Melbourne, and even if they do have a good home and away season, it will be about the finals now for them in the next year or so. And yeah, good win for Carlton. My big call was Sammy Walsh and Paddy Cripps. They combined for 65 or more disposals in that game, and that combined for around 55. So it was close, but not quite correct. And then the next and final semi-final was between Port Adelaide and GWS. And in a huge upset, GWS managed to pull off a pretty big win at Adelaide Oval over the Power, who have been struggling in the last couple months, especially with sickness and injuries. They had some pretty bad knocks in that game to Scotty Isett. He got subbed out. Mackenzie and Marshall were playing injured, along with Dixon as well. But yeah, pretty poor performance from Port Adelaide. They weren't exactly bad. They were very inaccurate as well in both their finals. Todd Marshall, pretty inaccurate. Lord missed some easy chances in this game. Got to work on your inaccuracy. I think they were the most inaccurate team this year, Port Adelaide. So that's something for them to work on. Their goal kicking just has to be better, especially in a final. You can't be dishing up a performance like that in a final, especially when GWS only really had one good patch, which was at the start of the second quarter, where they kicked 4 or 5 goals that won them the game. Port Adelaide were probably the better side in the second half, but it was that 10-minute patch that would just too good, the Giants, in it. Their midfield just dominated, and from the first bounce, it was Cornelio walking out of the middle, who missed the first week with an eye injury. It was just him walking out of the middle in the first bounce. You could just tell that GWS were the better side in the midfield for the whole game, led by Kieran Briggs, who unfortunately got copped a knock to his shoulder, and is in doubt to play Collingwood. I mean, they're going to play him, but probably injured. Like, he's just not going to have the same impact, and his clearance work is the best of any ruckman in the comp, in my opinion. He's just absolutely superb. He's also one of the best ruckmen at tapping it to the midfielder's advantage, and he certainly did that in both finals, and especially in that one against Port Adelaide in the first half. A bit unfortunate he got injured though. Their forward line's been superb of late. The Giants, Riccardi and Hogan were again superb. Toby Green, Bedford, Daniels, you name it. And their defence stepped up in the second half as well. Iden was superb, and every defender really chipped in. And Port Adelaide, they just looked lousy in their defence, which is a good thing that Zerk Thatcher and Radigalia have both requested trades to them because they need them. Because Hogan made Mackenzie look like he was a 18-year-old raw kid, and that's something that Tom Hawkins has done as well. So that's something they need to work on, Port Adelaide, and good thing that they'll be getting some players this off season. They might also have to look at getting another big-bodied midfielder, because Horn Francis, Butters, and Rosie, while they're all good, it's not working still. Boak is being forced almost to retire at the moment. Ollie Wines, there's something wrong with him at the moment. He's only had a few good games this season, and yeah, they really need him to get going next season, and it just doesn't look right. And William Drew, let's face it, he's a great tagger, but he's not an explosive midfielder. They need a bit more of an experienced, in their prime player, so obviously, Bailey Smith, I don't think he is going to come, but if I were them, I'd be trying to get him. They also need to fix up their ruck stocks in the off-season. My big call in that game, which was a bit unfortunate, I didn't know at the time that Marshall was injured, and I couldn't really be bothered to change it. It was him to kick 5 or more goals, and he unfortunately had a pretty inaccurate game and has had an inaccurate final series, and I think he kicked 2 goals in the end, so didn't quite get the 5 I was hoping, that's for sure. I got one tip correct. I obviously tipped Port and got that one wrong, and no big calls. I still haven't got a big call right in this final series. Moving on, though, to the prelim finals. Huge games. Collingwood versus GWS. It's going to get ridiculous, let's face it. These two teams have been absolutely superb. Yeah, it's going to be a difficult one, that's for sure. High pressure, it's probably going to come down to the midfield battle, and that's where GWS have been absolutely superb at in recent weeks. Cornelio, Kelly, Green, just name any GWS midfielder, and they have been superb in the final series. Their forward line is probably better than ours at the moment, which is a little bit scary. We can't let their midfield get a hold of us. Their defence is superb as well. Our defence is probably what's going to have to be our key as well. It stepped up the first week against Melbourne. Melbourne had about 70 inside forward 50s, but lost the game. They had double ours, or even more than double ours, but it was Darcy Moore, Quainer, Murphy, Howe, those type of players, Maynard, they all stepped up, and thankfully we've got Maynard for this game because we definitely need him to go on the Toby Green matchup. That matchup could be the matchup of the final series, really, and could see, because in my opinion, I think whoever wins this game is probably going to win the grand final. Not to be rude to Carlton or Brisbane, but I do think whoever wins this game will win the grand final, in my opinion. These two teams, in my opinion, are probably the best at the MCG. Not saying anything to Carlton, it's just GWS can win anywhere. And they've just got such a great side that I believe they have the defence to stop Carlton's forward line. It'll be an intriguing midfield battle, though. But anyways, Collingwood, I'm going to go for, obviously, I'm biased. Unfortunately, we don't have Taylor Adams. We've got Nick Dacos back, though, which is good. But Taylor Adams is a painful one. It's looking unlikely that he will play in the grand final, assuming that we win. So that's just so sad. That's devastating. Can't even begin my sadness for Taylor Adams. I really, really hope he can either get up or, I don't know, just find a way to play injured. I don't know. But if we win the grand final and he's not playing, then that's just going to be shattering, and we'll have to dedicate the grand final to him and play for him if he doesn't play. Look, we can always play him and sub him out if we need to. He can play a half or something and then sub him out. I don't know. That's just something I've been thinking about recently. But anyways, back to the prediction. Gonna go Collingwood. Bias tip. Gonna be close one by 15 points. My score prediction, which is a bit different. I haven't been doing that in these finals so far. But we'll give a score prediction. I'm going to go Collingwood 12 goals, 14-86 to GWS 10 goals, 11-71. Don't really care if it's right or wrong. If it's right, then wow, I'm a pretty good tipper. But if it's wrong, then it doesn't really make a difference, does it? My big call, there are 5 or more lead changes in the first half. Now, moving on to the second prelim final in Brisbane versus Carlton. Now, if you're a Brisbane or Carlton fan watching this and you heard what I said earlier about the first prelim final, whoever wins will probably win the grand final. I'm only saying that because Carlton don't have grand final experience. They looked a little bit nervy late in the game against Sydney. They didn't start too well against Melbourne, and the start is definitely going to be the key for them in this one against Brisbane, especially up at the Gabba. Brisbane haven't lost a game at the Gabba, been phenomenal. Their first week was fantastic. Their whole forward line chipped in. Joe Danaher was the star, really, with 5 goals. Their midfield was superb. Hugh McCluggage was voted best on in that first final. So, yeah, and their defence was pretty sound again. Though it could cop a big selection blow, though, with Jack Payne, I believe, walking around in a moon boot at the moment. So that's not a good sign. Just days out from the prelim. He's got to somehow find a way to get up, which is looking unlikely, meaning that Gardner might have to come in and play a role. And I think he's played 1 game this year. I think he was a free agent last year, but signed on. Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what Brisbane do if Payne is out. Especially Sammy Mackay will be definitely coming in for Carlton. And you'd think Martin as well. He was really good in the first final, and people were saying, do Carlton have another good forward to, I guess, replace him? and it didn't really look like they had anyone to really replace him, and they definitely missed him in that game against Melbourne. Shows you the value of him. No, it will be a hard call to make admissions like that, especially in a final. Does Doherty get a rest, or does he play sub, come on and do what he did in the second half and play with intensity? The big selection calls ahead, definitely for Michael Voss against his former side, that's for sure. And there'll be some boos for him as well as he gets reunited with his old side. Interesting time slot for this game as well, I do want to add. 5:15 time slot, Victorian time for this Gabba game. Very interesting, but nevertheless, should be a fun game to watch. I reckon it's going to be a thriller. In my opinion, I do think that there is a chance of an upset, that Carlton can win this, but I'm going to go Brisbane just because it is tipping and Brisbane don't lose at the Gabba as well. So go Brisbane by 5 points. My score prediction, Brisbane 15 goals, 5.95 to Carlton 13 goals, 12.90. That's a lot more scoring shots that I've just realised than Brisbane. So maybe inaccuracy could come into play in this game. We've seen it happen in many of the finals already. You wouldn't want that, though, for Carlton. But my big call, seeming I didn't tip Carlton, I want to go with a pretty big and ballsy Blues call. And I'm going to tip them to kick 5 or more goals in a row at any stage in the game. So I hope you guys enjoyed the predictions video. A pretty fun one. Hopefully Collingwood can get into the grand final, and hopefully this time next week I will be doing my grand final prediction of Collingwood being in the grand final, hopefully. And let's hope not against Carlton, because in my opinion Brisbane win, that's alright, because we should be able to beat them at the G, but probably not Carlton. I don't know, it'll be intriguing to see who makes it. We've got to get past GWS first, and hopefully we can. Stay tuned for my Collingwood prelim final review after the clash against the Giants this Friday night. And also stay tuned for my grand final prediction and weekly vlog of the grand final coming out later next week.